Roger viewed the recipients of his generosity as his extended family, and he conceived this annual event as a sort of family get-together. And it is certainly no coincidence that it coincided with his birthday. I know that this was always an event that he very much looked forward to. In hearing how the recipients of the Foundation's various grants and scholarships had progressed during the year, and in fact catching up with previous recipients and hearing how they had built their lives and communities. So, in keeping with that vision, the family has invited a small, and we hope, representative group of people to share their memories of Roger with us this evening.
I'm Dr. Eugene Dozortsev. I came from Russia and I'm a Russian rocket scientist. So for the first time I met with Roger in 1997 when the guys were looking for somebody to lead their development team and virus research team. Roger actually clicked with me and struck me in many very different ways. So I would say that first and foremost he was a scientist, and his inquisitive mind was always wondering. He always looked at things, and I could guarantee you that he was absolutely thinking outside the square every single time. There was nothing conventional about the way Roger behaved or Roger thought about things. It was the way of life, and his nature was to never give up. So if one of the way of handling things wouldn't work, he would actually try a different way and a different tack, and he would do it until he succeeds. The other thing which I want to mention about Roger is that apart from the fact that he was a thinker and a challenger and he would never give up, I would say that the generosity of his spirit actually would come through every single time. The way he talked about things, the way he discussed them, the way he would discuss the policies always were targeted to help people. When we had Cybec, it was about helping his customers, helping people to fight viruses. Roger's generosity touched everybody who dealt with him. So obviously people who were in Cybec for longer time or shorter time, everybody benefited from that, and the hard work and all this adrenaline-filled sort of days and evenings were generously paid for by Roger at the end. But also his generosity with the Cybec Foundation is well known and is highly respected.
So Community Bubs, deliberately called that because we wanted to be the community that was looking after vulnerable babies. Roger invited me to make an application for funding, but I wasn't to get too wordy. I was to tell him what was needed in 2 pages. But on the basis of that, Roger did fund a 3-year pilot program with the evaluation from Monash University to go with it, to provide a new style of intensive home support for vulnerable babies and parents. And at the outcome of those 3 years, we had this fantastic evaluation report that showed that 85 to 90% of the children had remained safely in the care of their families. And we had all these wonderful stories of the parents who'd gone through the program talking about how their lives had been changed. So based on that, Roger decided that they would continue to fund Community Bubs. So that was back, we started in 2003. We're now in our 16th year of Community Bubs. So in that time, it's over 500 families who've been through the program. So, there's at least 2 children per family. So we're talking about 1,200 children. That Roger's generosity deliberately and intentionally helped change their lives, and that kind of lifetime change is what we now call strategic philanthropy. So Roger was doing that before it had a name for it. He was interested in the long-term outcome. not how many families did we see, but the long-term outcome of things being better. He got very involved in our community house program, first of all at Keith Street, and he'd come in and see all the babies and the families in the room and say, "Now which one are my babies?" He always wanted to know which were his babies. And there'd be lots of activities, party going on for the children. It might be the end of year, Christmas celebration, and kind of look around and say, "Well, where's Roger?" And there he'd be, sitting down sort of on one of the little chairs with all the children around him, just, bursting with joy to have that time with those children, and they were his babies, and know that, what a difference he'd made in their lives. He had his very kind of despairing moments, I suppose you'd say, about the future of the world. He was quite troubled about things not being ethical. People, sort of injustices really troubled him. And I think because he'd known struggle in his own life, he had quite an affinity with reading into stories about people that he might have read on the news or on the internet. And he'd kind of pick up a story about one person. There was a recent one with the doctor in England, and he'd be really troubled about the injustice of how that person was treated. So we had, conversations about that and about trying to manage ourselves in knowing there's only so much one person can do, and it was important to spend that time with him and listen, but also validate that he was doing good things in the world in the midst of all of the things that might make us all unhappy and sad. That what he was actually demonstrating was one person can make a huge difference.
I'm Philippa Connolly. I'm the principal of Medley Hall at the University of Melbourne. Medley Hall has been the recipient of enormous generosity from the Cybec Foundation and from Roger. When I got to know Roger and Pat, I was a relatively new principal of Medley, and it was in a very difficult state. It looked like it might close. And Roger and Pat became enthusiastic supporters of what we were trying to do there. Essentially, our aim is to provide a community where students can live together, know one another, be known, have friends, but with a particular focus on access and equity. So on students who will otherwise not be able to complete a degree, perhaps will not have a good place to live. And so it's a very quirky community in lots of ways, and I think that appealed deeply to Roger. Medley wouldn't exist in its current form if it were not for Roger. It would not be possible for us to offer need-blind admissions. That is to say, we don't have to turn anyone away on financial grounds because the Cybec Foundation provides us with the means to offer bursaries which are packaged specifically for individuals. And that's extraordinarily important. Just as important is that the place exists. So the Cybec scholars come into a community where people who are funded in all sorts of ways, either by their own means or by ab study or by Commonwealth scholarships of one kind or another. All those people are beneficiaries because all of them have the opportunity to live in this beautiful place. And similarly with Cydelia House, it is exquisitely restored and done up. It is the best possible setting for people to make community, and that community is just beginning now. So if I think about Roger's legacy, I think about the social purpose of Cybec and the specific help to specific individuals and then to this community. But on a personal note, my work here over the last however many years has been enabled because of Roger and the Cybec Foundation. I would have been able to run this place had it survived, but we've been able to say yes. And I guess that's what Cybec has done for so many people. Roger said yes, and having said yes, went on supporting people through their project, so students through their degree. And And that's an extraordinary comfort for people. For me, it meant I could do my work. I could collaborate with Roger and with the Cybec Foundation. And that's a huge gift, not one that many people have.
My name is Mukhtar. I am currently a master's student at Melbourne University. There are two coincidental ways that I met Roger. So I'm still not sure which way has the first privilege, I guess. One is that I met one of Roger's friends. Her name is Margaret. She introduced me to Roger. She told me about Roger's foundation because at the time I had just graduated from year 12 and I wasn't sure of how to go to university and also have accommodation. And Margaret told me about Roger's foundation, the Cybec Foundation. She had introduced me to Roger without me having seen Roger. But also at the same time I had applied through the website of University of Melbourne. So my application had been looked at for the residency at Medley Hall by the principal. Without me knowing, they had already known that I had applied. So then I was called to an interview at Medley Hall, and at which point I realized that it's the Roger that Margaret had told me about, and it was then that the principal of Medley Hall, Philippa, also introduced me to Roger, and later on I had the privilege of actually meeting Roger face to face. So basically I have been a beneficiary of the Cybec Foundation as an undergraduate student and now as a postgraduate student. Personally, I have learned a lot from Roger throughout the years that I've had the opportunity and the privilege to see him and meet him. I was introduced to classical music by attending some concerts with Roger at the Melbourne Symphony Orchestra. My first concert was, I think, in 2015, and Roger introduced me to that concert, and it became my favorite type of music after that. Roger was a good listener, and through that he was a good carer. He cared for people, he cared for people getting opportunities, being given a chance, and I'm one of those persons. Roger has given me a chance, he has given me opportunity. I also saw Roger as an academic, as an intelligent person, that through the stories that I heard from him, he had worked hard and a very dedicated person to his profession, and the hard work that he did for all of us and the many generations to come.
My name is Angelique. I come from Rwanda. I came to Australia in 2008 as part of the Homeless World Cup 2008, Fed's grade.
I am Damien Zabanita. I am Angelique's brother. I came to Australia at the end of 2013. Couldn't speak English. Came over here, get sponsored by Cybec Foundation through Roger. Did my foundation studies, full sponsorship, living at Medley. Then I proceed my undergrad student studies. Keep staying at Medley. Then I didn't know before how I was there, and everything I asked my sister, because I get there from my sister, because my sister did all those tribal things, how she get there, how she can help all those amazing people. And then she told me, okay, Damien, you're here, and Philippa mentioned that because of Roger.
I got to know Roger through a mutual friend, and Philippa who was the principal and still the principal of Medley Hall. Yeah, that's how I got to know Roger. And when I heard about Roger, this guy who is worth millions of millions, I was like shaking, like I was expecting like someone you don't even talk to. But when I got to meet him, it was, yeah, wow, I didn't know people like this sort of title will, you know, be like this relaxed and casual, like somebody you say hi to and they say hi. So, wow, like, it has been beautiful memories with Roger. I can talk about it for years. Just that one of it, because I come from Africa. Rich people, not even like Roger, you don't get close to them. Like you stay over there. But with him, he was engaging, and he just because also I wasn't used for people to want to know my problems and actually want to help. But he was like, there was so much love and so much support. What can we do for you to do better? And I was like, wow, these people, where do they come from? Like,
I remember it was first from a dinner thing. I couldn't understand English. Was I think you had to pick up some words. From a dinner thing, like was my first form of dinner actually. But it was cool. And as Angelique said, was okay. That guy, millionaire. How can I talk to him? Thing like that. He was absolutely humble, relaxed with his jumper, calm. He was just, hello Damien, how are you? I heard about you. Oh yeah. I was cool. Yeah, you know me then. Yeah, cool. And that's why I get to know him.
I think his philosophy, because obviously someone who helps you like that, sometimes you feel like there's no way you can pay back, or if you have to do something in return, what will I do for this person? But I was like, Roger, like, wow. And then his philosophy was like, what I'm doing for you, if you make it, do it for other people. So it's all about getting up, lifting someone else up. And trust me, because my financial position is so much better than compared to where I come from. And there's people I went to school with back home, and they are in a very bad situation. So I've been doing my own little kind of small charity. And every time I do something like that, I use the same slogan that Roger told me. People say, what can I do for you, man? Like, that's very nice, thanks for helping me. I said, man, if you ever make it, just help someone else. That's all you can give back to me.
Absolutely, yes.
So that's what Roger been saying to us, and we're gonna keep that legacy.
My name is Rupert Sherwood. I'm Director of Development at Melbourne Theatre Company, and I've been privileged to know Roger for, I suppose, about 17 years. I got to know him when I started at Melbourne Theatre Company in the early 2000s. So it began with Roger and Pat back in about 2002, when they started sponsoring new writing through a program called Hardlines, which was managed by then artistic associate Julian Merrick and dramaturg, which took new young directors and worked with new writing to eventually present a play reading. And they were very internal, non-public play readings, but it was really terrific to see how Roger and Pat got so involved, would come along to all of the workshops and the readings, and see how their funding was opening up opportunities for emerging directors and new writing as well. That would then eventually make its way into some form or another, whether it was produced at MTC or went on to have a life elsewhere. It was always very exciting for them. His funding of those programs wasn't about what he wanted. It was an excitement for what he was helping be created, and that was what they wanted through their arts funding through and through, that it was about creation, next generation, and helping people by giving them opportunities, which is very, very exciting and incredibly visionary, I think. Yeah, there are a lot of people who have benefited through the Cybec readings and Cybec Electric whose stories would not have been heard had it not been for the opportunities that presents. And they're important stories to be heard as well, because they talk about the makeup of what we are as a community, and in particular Melbourne, and has strengthened the foundations of art, of the arts in Melbourne. And you know, we are now seeing some of these plays that had their beginnings through the programs, whether it be Hardlines or Cybec readings or Cybec Electric, now start getting main stage productions. And likewise, I mean, people who also cut their teeth, people like Sam Strong was still in drama school when he came through the Hardlines program, and he went on to be an artistic associate of Melbourne Theatre Company and is now artistic director of Queensland Theatre and doing incredible things. And you know, I'm sure that he would have done incredible things anyway, but to be able to say that he got his beginnings there, and like as did all of these writers, that they had these opportunities, who knows how long it would have taken otherwise. And I think that is a real testament to the legacy of Roger, Pat, the Cybec Foundation, that will continue. It has strengthened the arts sector in this city in particular, quite astonishingly.
My name's Mark Freestone. I'm a PhD student here at the Botanic Gardens, but I first met Roger in 2009, 2010, when he sponsored me to do a studentship at the Botanic Gardens, which was a little 6-week project, doing a little research project. But that's had quite a big impact on my life, I guess, because I was lucky enough to get a job back with the Botanic Gardens about 7 or 8 years later, and that experience from the studentship was extremely critical in me getting that job, and then that sort of has more or less become my career now. A small anecdote I had into Roger as a person that sticks in my memory for some reason was a few years ago at one of the annual Cybec foundations. At one point in the evening, wanted to go and say hi to Roger, and I found him talking to a waitress and engaged in deep conversation for at least 10-15 minutes, which it struck me as something that was a bit unusual, because here he was in a room full of his guests and he was talking to someone who was supposed to be serving us food, which I thought was a really beautiful snapshot of him as a person, that I guess he really cared for the little people and was really interested in the little people. So thinking about his legacy for me personally, being the beneficiary of the studentship years ago now has really had a profound impact on my life. It was influential in me getting a job at the Gardens, and which has since become a PhD project that I'm working on, where we're trying to grow some critically endangered native orchids, some of our most beautiful wildflowers that are on the brink of extinction. And for many years we've not been able to do anything to help them, but it looks like we've fairly recently made some breakthroughs that look like for the first time we'll be able to grow these endangered species in captive breeding programs and really bring them back from the brink of extinction. And I guess in a roundabout kind of way that's part of his legacy, because I wouldn't have been in that position if it wasn't for the studentship that I'd had. And I guess I'm just one of many studentships at the Botanic Gardens, and that's just was only a small part of his work.
In closing this portion of the event, on behalf of Jenny, myself, Adrian and Kazuko, Sarah, Terry, Alexandra and Vivian, I'd like to thank everybody who has offered their support in this difficult time of our lives. We're all aware that there are many people who would have loved to have shared their memories of Roger with us this evening. However, due to time constraints, we weren't able to fit more people into this video section. So in keeping with Roger's initial intention when he first conceived this event, I'd like to invite you all to join us in the bar for drinks and nibbles and to share your memories of Roger with the other guests. Cheers.